Look down at your wrist for a second. There's very good chance you are wearing a piece of technology right now that is tracking your biometrics.
Oh, yeah. Probably an Apple Watch or something.
Right. I mean, we live in an era where we have absolute mastery over monitoring our physical existence.
We really do.
We know our exact resting heart rate. We get an alert on our phone if our REM sleep was too short.
Yeah, we track our steps, our macros.
Our bank accounts down to the penny.
Mm-hmm.
We are just obsessed with knowing our status. Am I physically optimized? Am I financially secure?
Exactly.
But I want to ask you, the listener, a profound and, frankly, a slightly unsettling question. When was the last time you checked your spiritual biometrics?
Wow. Yeah, that is a heavy question.
Are you spiritually alive right now? Or, and this is the terrifying part, honestly, are you slowly dying without even realizing it?
It really is a staggering question to sit with, and it totally upends how we usually evaluate our lives.
It really does.
Because when you dive into the core of Catholic theology, which is what we are unpacking today, the answer to that question isn't some sliding scale.
Right, like, well, I'm doing my best.
Yeah, or I gave to charity last week, so I'm good. It is a stark binary reality.
Okay.
According to this framework, your soul is either filled with a presence called sanctifying grace, or it isn't.
This is black and white.
Completely. You are either spiritually alive or you are spiritually dead. There is no middle ground.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are looking at a fascinating stack of sources. We've got dense theological texts, foundational teachings, historical reflections, all centered around this exact concept.
The theology of sanctifying grace.
Exactly. And our mission today is to take a magnifying glass to what it actually means to be in a state of grace.
Which is so needed.
But to do that, to even begin to understand the actual health of our soul, we have to completely toss out our modern, deeply watered-down definitions of what the word grace actually means.
That is the crucial first step because, if you ask the average person on the street to define grace, the answers are almost always tied to an aesthetic.
Right, or a behavior.
Exactly. People think of like a ballet dancer moving with grace. Or they think of the quick prayer you mumble before eating Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. Or most commonly in modern spiritual circles, they just view it as a feeling.
Oh, 100%.
It's that warm, glowing, emotional high you get during a really moving piece of music. Or this vague cosmic sense of help when you're going through a bad breakup.
It's treated like a cosmic pat on the back.
Yeah. A spiritual attaboy from the universe.
Precisely. But the theological sources we are pulling from today, they completely reject that framework.
Completely.
In this theology, sanctifying grace is absolutely not a fleeting emotion.
Right.
It is not an adrenaline rush. And it is not merely some external tool that God hands you to make your day easier.
So what is it?
It is quite literally the life of God dwelling within the human soul. It is a permanent supernatural gift. When a person is in a state of grace, the creator of the universe is not just observing them from a cloud.
Yeah.
He is actively, objectively residing inside of their soul.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are making a massive conceptual leap here.
We really are.
We aren't talking about God acting like a life coach yelling instructions from the sidelines.
Right.
We're talking about something more akin to a spiritual heartbeat. Like, if I'm understanding the sources correctly, think of it almost like divine DNA.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
It's as if a person is injected with the literal life force of the divine, and it completely alters their internal makeup. It actually changes what you are.
Yeah. The term the theological texts use for this is an ontological change.
Hang on. Ontological is one of those $10 seminary words.
Fair enough, yeah.
Break that down for us. How does my actual being change?
Okay, think of it like this. It's the difference between taking a dog, taping a pair of wings to its back, and teaching it to jump off the couch, versus going in and fundamentally rewriting that dog's genetic code so that it actually grows wings and becomes a new kind of creature entirely.
Oh, wow. That is a wild image.
Right. Sanctifying grace isn't God taping a list of good behaviors onto you. It alters your fundamental nature, elevating you to become an actual adopted child of God.
So it's a literal participation in the divine nature.
Exactly. And according to the teachings, without this specific supernatural life dwelling within you, entering eternal life heaven is simply not possible.
Wow.
It is the absolute requirement.
But I have to push back here for a second.
Sure.
If I'm listening to this, I'm probably thinking, if the literal creator of the universe is actively residing inside my soul, Why do I still get irrationally angry when someone cuts me off in traffic on a Tuesday?
That is such a real question.
Right. Like, why don't I walk around feeling glowing and serene and holy all the time?
Well, what's fascinating here is how this highlights our modern obsession with tying truth to our emotions.
Oh, yeah. We do that a lot.
We do. But feelings are biological. They are tied to your blood sugar, your sleep schedule, your stress levels.
Right. If I haven't had my coffee, I don't feel very holy.
Exactly. But grace operates on a much deeper structural level of the soul. The fact that you don't feel it doesn't mean it isn't there.
That makes a lot of sense.
And it completely shifts the entire paradigm of the spiritual life.
How so?
Well, you move away from this exhausting, legalistic idea of just following the rules to appease a distant judge. Or, chasing emotional highs at spiritual retreats.
Oh, right. The retreat high.
Yeah. Instead, the spiritual journey becomes about maintaining and nurturing a living, breathing relationship inside your own soul. You're actively trying to keep a divine life thriving.
So if this grace is a living, breathing presence within us, I mean, it has to be subject to the same fundamental rules as anything else that lives.
Yes.
It is vulnerable. Anything that is alive can be starved. It can be weakened.
And tragically, it can be killed.
Right. Which means we have to look at the mechanisms that harm this divine life. We have to talk about sin.
And just as we understand that physical harm operates on a spectrum, right? Like a paper cut is not a gunshot wound.
Right. Definitely not.
The theology outlines two very distinct degrees of spiritual harm. They are not all the same, and they have vastly different mechanical effects on the soul.
Venial sin and mortal sin.
Exactly.
Let's start with the first category, venial sin. Now, just because it's categorized as the lesser of the two, the sources are very clear that it is not harmless.
Oh, absolutely not.
Venial sin is real, it is damaging, but the defining characteristic is that it does not destroy sanctifying grace. The divine life survives it.
The heartbeat continues, yes. But venial sin does incredible collateral damage.
Okay, what kind of damage?
It weakens a person's charity, their ability to love God and others. It creates attachments to created things rather than the Creator. And mechanistically, it dulls a person's spiritual sensitivity. The teachings warn that venial sin softens the ground for a much more catastrophic collapse down the line.
I want to try an analogy here, because I think we need to understand how it softens that ground. Go for it. Think of your soul like a beautifully crafted, perfectly tuned acoustic guitar.
Okay, I like that.
Venial sin is like the guitar slowly falling out of tune. You bump it against a wall, the humidity changes.
Sure.
You play a G chord, and it's just a tiny bit sharp. The audience isn't going to riot.
No, the song isn't completely ruined.
Exactly. But here is the danger. If you keep playing an untuned guitar, your ear slowly gets used to the bad sound. You lose your ear for perfect pitch.
You start accepting dissonance as normal.
Yes. That's what venial sin does to the psyche. It normalizes spiritual dissonance until a disastrous, song-ruining wrong note becomes almost inevitable.
That captures the psychological mechanism perfectly. You don't lose the instrument, but you lose the capacity to make beautiful music with it.
Wow.
Which brings us to the major event. If venial sin is the guitar falling out of tune, the second category, mortal sin, is taking that guitar and smashing it into 1,000 pieces on the stage.
Just a complete, fatal heart attack to the soul.
Without exaggeration. The consequence of mortal sin is the complete destruction of sanctifying grace.
Wow.
When it is committed, the soul loses its supernatural life. God honors the rejection, and he ceases to dwell within the soul in that intimate, life-giving way.
And the theology is terrifyingly stark here. If a person remains in this state of spiritual death, and it goes unrepented before their physical life ends, it leads to permanent, eternal separation from God.
Yeah.
We need to pause and emphasize that this is not a metaphor.
No, it's not.
The texts do not treat this as symbolic language for having a bad day or feeling really guilty.
Exactly. The loss of divine life is treated as an objective, measurable reality in the spiritual realm. Soul is dead.
The divine DNA is literally stripped away. It is an absolute severing.
It is.
Now, I can hear the collective anxiety of the audience spiking right now.
Oh, for sure.
Because if the stakes of mortal sin are literal spiritual death, I need to know exactly how this happens. Because I do not want to walk around terrified that I'm going to make an accidental mistake.
Right.
Like, can I trip over a theological wire on my way to work, get frustrated, say something terrible, and boom, my soul is suddenly dead without me realizing it?
This raises an important question, and it is honestly where people get the most tangled up in unnecessary spiritual anxiety.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The theology provides very strict, very clear boundaries to prevent exactly that kind of panic.
Oh, good.
For a sin to actually be mortal, to have the power to sever the life of God, it cannot just be a bad habit or a fleeting, angry thought.
Okay.
It must meet 3 specific criteria, and all 3 must be present at the exact same time. Let's look at the anatomy of this destruction.
Let's do it. Criterion number 1. The texts call it grave matter.
Yes. Grave matter is the what of the action.
Yeah.
The act itself must be objectively severely wrong. It must violate the core tenets of moral law. So we aren't talking about losing your patience with your toddler or, telling your boss you like his ugly tie to be polite.
Right. Small stuff.
We are talking about profound theft, severe harm to another human being, profound betrayals of fidelity. The object of the action must carry immense destructive weight.
But just doing the severe thing isn't enough to kill the soul on its own, which leads to criterion number 2, full knowledge.
This is the awareness component. The person committing the grave act must actually know that what they are doing is a serious offense against God.
Oh, okay.
You cannot commit a mortal sin in total ignorance. If someone grew up completely isolated with a totally malformed understanding of reality and they genuinely did not comprehend that a specific action was a grave evil,
Then the criteria isn't met.
exactly, that requirement of knowledge isn't met. The intellect has to be engaged. You have to see the line in the sand.
And then comes criterion number 3, which seems to be the ultimate safeguard, full consent.
Yes, this is the choice. It is the action of the human will. Even if the matter is grave, and even if you know it is grave, you must freely and deliberately choose to do it anyway.
So no accidents.
No accidents. If a person is being physically forced, or if they are acting under the influence of an extreme psychological compulsion or a severe addiction that completely hijacks their free will in that moment, the full consent of the will is compromised.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because when you synthesize those 3 elements, grave matter, full knowledge, and full consent, you realize that mortal sin is literally never an oops moment.
Never.
You cannot accidentally kill the divine life in your soul any more than you can accidentally file for a complex legal divorce.
That's a perfect way to frame it.
Mortal sin is a conscious, deliberate rebellion. It is looking God in the eye, seeing the relationship, and actively saying, I choose this action over you. I want you out.
It is the ultimate misuse of human freedom. And structurally, that is why the consequence makes sense.
Right.
God will never force his life onto a soul that has deliberately and knowingly evicted him. He respects human autonomy to a frightening degree.
That is heavy. I mean, it's profoundly respectful of human free will, but it is incredibly heavy.
It is.
If we are dealing with a deliberate, catastrophic severing of the divine life, we absolutely must look at the roadmap for repair. Because if a soul is dead, flatlined, and empty, how do we resurrect it?
Well, thankfully, the sources do not leave us in the dark here.
Thank goodness.
They offer an incredibly robust mechanism for restoration. The fundamental promise of this theology is that as long as a person is breathing, there is a road back.
Always.
Always. No matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how deliberate the severing was, God has provided a direct way to resurrect the dead soul, and that is the sacrament of confession.
Think of confession as the ultimate spiritual trauma center.
Yes.
If mortal sin is the fatal heart attack, confession is the defibrillator.
I love that.
The texts explain that this isn't just a therapeutic exercise where you vent your guilt to feel better. Mechanistically, through this sacrament, the mortal sin is objectively forgiven, and sanctifying grace is completely, brilliantly restored.
The divine life rushes back in. The soul breathes again.
It is a literal resurrection.
It is. But we have to remember the rule we established earlier. Anything that lives needs to be fed.
Right, the divine DNA needs nourishment.
Exactly. Once the soul is pulled back from death through confession, or even if it's just dealing with the daily wear and tear of venial sins, it desperately needs nourishment to stay resilient. And this is the role of the Eucharist.
I want to dig into the how of this because it can sound very abstract to people.
Sure.
The theology states that receiving the Eucharist increases and strengthens sanctifying grace. But how does a physical thing, bread and wine, feed a completely invisible, non-physical soul? It's not like the soul needs carbohydrates.
No, definitely not carbs. Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the theology claims the Eucharist is not merely a symbol or a nice communal meal. It is the literal physical presence of Christ. Therefore, receiving it is a direct, unmediated transmission of divine life.
Ooh.
Mechanistically, it works on the human will and the intellect. It actively reshapes a person's internal desires. It fortifies their psychological and spiritual resilience against future temptations.
So it's actively working on you.
Yes, it takes that untuned guitar we talked about earlier and begins tightening the strings back to perfect pitch. It is the medicine that prevents the fatal heart attack.
So what does this all mean for the person listening to us right now? How do you actually walk this out in daily life?
That's the real question.
It seems to me that it provides a surprisingly practical, almost rigorous roadmap for what the sources call maintaining a state of grace.
It does. It demands an active daily engagement. You aren't just coasting.
Right.
To maintain this divine life, you must actively identify and avoid mortal sin. You must utilize the trauma center of confession, not just when you've flatlined, but regularly to clear out the venial sins that are dulling your sensitivity.
Like tuning the guitar.
Exactly. You receive the Eucharist to build up your spiritual immune system, and you pray daily to keep the communication lines open with the presence dwelling inside you.
It completely flips the script. I mean, spirituality isn't just about trying to be a good guy who doesn't steal office supplies.
No.
It is the intense daily nourishment of an intimate relationship. And the most vital takeaway from all of this is that the human soul is never, ever static.
It is impossible to stand still spiritually. Because grace is a living reality, it is either being actively fed and growing stronger, or it is being neglected and slowly starving.
Wow.
In every single moment, with every choice, you are either moving closer to God or drifting further away.
And that reality brings us right back to the magnitude of the question we asked at the very beginning of this deep dive.
It sure does.
When you strip away all the modern noise, all the fitness trackers, the career milestones, the superficial metrics we use to judge if we are winning at life, it all boils down to one critical, overriding status check.
Is the life of God alive in your soul today?
I want to ask you, the listener, to sit with that. Based on the criteria we just explored, are you in a state of grace right now?
Yeah. Check that spiritual heartbeat.
Because if this theology is true, ultimately, nothing else in your life is going to matter. This is the only metric that survives the grave.
It is the only foundation that lasts.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Okay.
We spent this entire time looking inward, right? Analyzing the state of our own souls.
Right.
But what happens when we project this theology outward? If we truly, deeply believe this, if we walked out our front doors with the absolute conviction that sanctifying grace was the literal living presence of the creator of the universe dwelling inside a human being, how fundamentally would that change the way we treat the people around us?
Oh, it would change everything.
Think about the person who bags your groceries, the coworker who annoys you, or the driver who cuts you off in traffic.
Right.
If any one of them could be walking around carrying the divine life within them, there is no such thing as an ordinary person anymore.
It demands that we treat every single interaction as an encounter with profound, almost terrifying dignity.
It really does. It changes the whole world. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take some time today to look past the physical biometrics. Check your soul, because it is worth absolutely everything.